Now that we've talked about the Biqbank, let's bring back our Marlin Perkins 1 preset and see if we can give that a little identity of our own by fiddling around with it a bit. First thing I can see, I've got a whole Biqbank free here, so using the technique we used in the other videos, let's start by just copying in Biqbank 1 to Biqbank 2, but use a whole new set of formulas so I can independently control Biqbank 2 versus Biqbank 1. Remember to copy a formula. Here I'll copy A into I. We'll copy I where A is on the second formula. X will retain. B, we'll copy that into J. Copy B into J. We'll put J there. Copy C into K. And we'll put K here. We'll copy F into L. Now we'll independently create a different set of outputs for the Biqbank. So we'll copy E into M. We'll stick M on the output. Remember, E is a blend function on G, so we'll have to copy G into something. We'll copy G into N, and now in M we will blend on N, not on G. That's taken care of. Let's copy in another shape generator. So O, we'll copy D into that. We'll stick O here. Use the same gating. We're going to set that shape generator to single cycle just like before. We want to make sure we go back here and set the Biqbank 2 to be driven off of my second shape generator. Okay. Now to finish the copying exercise, let's go in and create a second barrel like the first for the harmonic offset of the Biqbank. We'll call that harmonic off B. We'll use the same barrel type, 33. We'll change the first one to look the same, so I know that's for the A bank. All right, now we've got that set. The only other thing we need to do is go in, and where B used the first barrel, J we want to set to use the second barrel, so that's independently controlled. Now C uses the first barrel as well, but it's not set to anything on W, so it's really zeroed out. But just for the sake of argument, let's do the same thing on K. We'll set that to the second barrel. So now I should have everything independently copied in from Biqbank 1 to Biqbank 2, and let's go in and see what this sounds like. Sounds like the original, only perhaps there's a bigger attack because I'm doubling up there. You can hear the breathy sound still. In fact, that breathy sound's more enhanced maybe than I want it. So what can we do now? Well, we know that since I have an independent harmonic offset for the frequency spread, I can change the two sounds. And I can definitely hear now the two independent frequencies going on there. But let's do something a little more sophisticated. I'm pulsing the noise into the Biqbank using a pulse waveform. I have two options there. I can pulse at the beginning or I can pulse at the end. So let's take this second copy and we'll pulse that noise at the end, not at the beginning. They're both set to the same frequency on that shape generator pulse. So I should hear the first one come in and a little bit later the second one, because that's pulsing at the end of that pulse waveform. And yeah, you can hear that I'm in fact getting that double strike. Well, the next thing that comes to mind is, what if I want to change the rate of that strike in some way? Let me control that through a gen or a barrel. Let's try that. I know that the second shape generator is set to this fixed value of 33. Let's make that dependent on a gen, say. So we'll go in and we'll set a gen. Gen 1 equals, let's say, B double. And what we'll do now is go in here on my formula. I'll set that to Gen 1. Now I don't want that to go from 0 to 33. I want it to go at some relatively fast rate to maybe some rate a lot faster than what we have now, so the double strike is almost heard simultaneously. So let's use Y as an initial offset to this. Actually, we want this to be on that Gen 1. And now let's set Y, say, to 10. 10 times a second is what we'll start on. And perhaps the fastest pulse we'll get will be maybe about twice as fast as 33. Let's set that to 60. So we'll set the maximum number this comes in on at 50, because we're starting at 10 already. So when gen is 0, it'll be 10. When gen is max, it'll be 10 plus 50, which is 60. Now the gen is set at its min value, which should be the ending pulse coming in at the 10 times per second rate instead of the 33. And I should hear a much longer difference between the beginning and ending double strike. And yeah, I do. And I can increase that to some point about where it would have been, halfway, say, before. Or I can take it to its max rate, and now the two should be almost indistinguishable. That's doing exactly what we want it to do. So that's our first little addition, and maybe we'll set this to a little slower than what we had. And of course we can set the harmonic offset on that double strike a bit different than the one we have for the Biqbank A. Alright, that's our first change. Now one of the things about this sound is, with that doubling, I really don't need to double up on that noise, that breathy component. The breath from the Biqbank one is plenty. So one of the things I might do here is go to my I formula and let's remove the component there that is the breath component. Now when I play, I should have a little less of that noise. Yeah. But the attack is still pretty darn loud. Maybe more loud than I want it to be. So what can I do there? Let me create a barrel, and we'll make 3 equals B volume, say. Okay, and maybe I think if I change that to 04, that's a nice shape. Yeah, so that gives me none to full. And let's now offset the volume of that second bank, which is really just the strike component now because I took away the breath, and we'll make that dependent on my third barrel. How can I do that? Well, what I can do is take this whole formula and I can make that ancillary to something that's going to change the volume of this. So let's take another formula, P. We'll set that to 0 to 1. Oops, we don't want that to be 100. And we're going to set that on barrel 3. Now, what I'll do is I'll go back to I and I'll make the whole formula that's controlling the attack now only of the second bank. I'll make that ancillary to my new formula, P. And let's just remove the A outputs for a second. And we have our B volume down to none. I shouldn't hear anything now when I press the fingerboard. And I don't. And what I can do now is bring up the volume of that double strike so that it's not too loud. Let me bring back my main outputs on the A bank. And that's nice. That's better. That's more in line with the volume that I want. And if I want that strike to come in more, I can just change the volume. I can also, of course, change the harmonic offset, which will bring that strike down. Remember, a general rule of thumb is as I increase the frequency spread, as I make that resonance more pronounced, as I make the bandwidth spread thinner, I'm going to, in general, impart a more metallic sound, as opposed to if I went the other way, it would be more woody and fiber versus the higher end, more metallic and maybe classy. So if I change everything high here, you can hear. Just by doing that, I've got a kind of more glassy metallic sound because I've increased that frequency offset. And if I pull that back down to be much lower, I'm going to go more on the woody end, I'm sure. And I still have that nice double strike that I want. Hey, now this is getting a little bit different than the original. A little bit more options for me to control things. Let's add one more option here. Now, in Ed's original preset, I don't think he wanted to get too far away from the woody sound, but we want to do something a little bit different. So let's play around with this center function on the Biqbank we talked about last time, the center control. We saw that if we raised this to the high end, we got a much more metallic kind of a sound out. So why don't we make a barrel, and we'll set our remaining barrel to center control. And what we'll set now is another formula, Q. We know that the center goes from 0 for the first bandpass filter being the center to 1 for the last bandpass filter being the center. So we just need to go from 0 to 1. We'll set that to my fourth barrel, and all I got to do is set that new formula on the center. We'll do that on both of them. So we'll have center control both formulas. If we wanted to, we could have another formula control the center of my second bank, but I'm running out of controls here, so let's not worry about that. We'll control them both with the same formula. And now it's set to 0, so I should have the same sound I had before, but I should now be able to start increasing that center control, and this should change the sound. I can see it's starting to become more metallic. Almost like a metal drum now. And let's... Perhaps what I really want to do here is independently control the center of each one of these, because it's nice to be able to have its woody component, and this one will have its metallic component, and those sound pretty nice together. So let's do this. To make things symmetrical, let's switch this B double with center control. So I'll go down here. I will make Gen 1 center for A, and I'll copy into my 4 B double, and I will make Gen 2 now equals center of B. Alright, and that now is set the way I want. Now I have to switch these. So my doubling that I had before on the double amount has to be switched. So let's see, where is 4 used now? That's Q. Q was center. So what I need to do on the use of Q is set this to be controlled by not 4, but by Gen 1. And let's get a new formula, R. We'll set that the same as Q, only we're going to set that to be controlled by Gen 2. Oops. And we will set that to there. Now all I have to do is go back and see where my original Gen 1 was, and that's on O, and O was the control of the doubling, which is now going to be on barrel 4. So now let's bring my centers down. So now my doubling is controlling correctly, and my center on the first one, I can hear I've got a woody sound and the metal, and as I bring the second Biqbank up, that'll get more metallic. Okay, that's nice. So now I have complete control over the center on both Biqbank 1 and Biqbank 2. That's nice. I'm using all of my controls. The only other thing I could do was bring the Touche in. Since we have that remaining Touche control we haven't played with yet, let's think about how we might change this in a little more significant way. So far we've changed the original intent slightly here and there. We've added a double attack profile that we can change the volume of. We've added the center control to change timbre independently on both of the banks. but we haven't really added anything that takes this to a new dimension. So let's think about what we might do to add a significant difference from the original. And one thing we can do is play around with the volume itself using a shape generator. This is always an easy way to start adding repetitiveness to a preset. So let's create another shape generator. For now, let's just keep it on a constant so we can hear what will happen. We'll create another formula, S, and let's just set that to that shape generator, 3. We'll set it to 1. Now let's see what happens. Experiment with, say, a pulse wave on this. We've set it to 5 times a second. So let's see what happens when we put S here at 5 times a second and play our preset. We get that pulsing, and of course there's the reverb trail that you can hear. It doesn't die away right away, but I don't hear any of that noise either because it's constantly coming in and out on that pulse. So maybe pulse isn't the thing we want. Let's try triangle at 5 times a second. That's nice, but perhaps we want something that gives us a little more in and out. Well, let's try a square wave then. Well, that's going high and low. It's not quite what I want. What about a ramp up? That's nice effect. But I think ramp down will be better. You see, we start at that high value, at the 1, it ramps down, and then it comes in again. So it gives us that feeling of on and off, but not so fast as the pulse. We have some time on that ramp down, and that gives us a really nice sound. So let's use that, but of course we don't want to do it so that it's just one speed. We want to be able to vary that speed, and we want to do it with a touche. That's our remaining control, so we can bring this in and out when we need it. What we'll do is we'll keep our shape generator set as it is now, but on the shape generator itself, let's create a formula, T. Now T is going to basically change speed based on the touche control. So how do we do that? One thing we'll do is we'll start with setting that to unity. We'll set it to a gate because we want this gated when we press the touche area. And now we'll multiply this times something that is going to change. We could do it on Z, but we'll do it on Y. So what we want here is when I press the touche area, at the bottom it will be at my slower speed, and as I move my finger to top of Y, I'll increase that speed of repetition that we just tried out. To do that, let's just give ourselves a Y profile, and we want to do it, what's a good number of times a second? Let's say we want to go from something like 5 times a second to 20 times a second. So we'll set that to the hundreds for there. We'll set our low value to 5, and our high value to 20. That should be plenty fast enough. And we're going to evaluate this formula with touche. Go and evaluate with touche. The only thing we need to do now is bring in the touche in our fingerboard area so that we can use it. Now I have a half fingerboard, so I'm going to bring the touche at the point on the fingerboard display here where it's at the bottom of my fingerboard. You can put it other places, but it functions best on a half unit down there out of the way. And finally, I need to, instead of the constant that I have here, let me put in the formula that I need to control the speed of my shape generator. And now I'm not going to make it single cycle, of course. I want the pattern to repeat it, so I'll keep it on its continuous format. Now, if I press the fingerboard, I get my original sound. Because I haven't brought the shape generator in yet, touche is evaluated as 0 at this point, and so the shape generator isn't really going to kick in. But the minute that I touch the touche area, now I can hear my repetitiveness come in. And if I move down on Y, I have my slower, repetitions, and I can move that up to get my faster. Hey, that's quite nice, and now we've added something that's quite different than the original, though if I don't press the touche area, I can still do something that's quite like the original preset. So I think we've created something that I'm pleased with. We'll call it Marlin Perkins 3 when we're done, and maybe Ed might want to use that at some point if we send it in for the next release.